All right, this is Kevin, and this is the ACES Alumni Podcast with the 91s. I have Jeremy, Daniel, and Zach, and I played with all three players way back when ACES first started. And I'm just going to give a brief introduction for myself, and then the rest of the three of them will go. So my father, the founder of ACES, Samuel, was first founded in 2001. And I obviously played with them for all the years. And after that, I went to the University of South Florida. And at the moment, I am a claims adjuster and a youth coach at ACES. Jeremy?
Hi, I also played on the 91 ACES. I'm part of the 91 team as well. Just came back, and with the pandemic, I am now also helping out with the 2013s. I work for Fidelity Investments. And glad to be back.
I'm Coach Daniel. I am a 2013 coach. I played at HBU University, and I was actually one of the first players along with Kevin. And these two came in, I believe, a little bit later, but I was one of the first ones with Kevin that played with the team, and we definitely stayed together for a while until we were 18. And I'm back now coaching with the team.
Zach?
Yeah, I'm Zach. I also played with the 91 team my whole youth career. I went to college in New Jersey, Stevens Institute of Technology. I got my degree there. Played in Germany for a little bit. Then I came back, and now I'm working as an operations manager with HP.
All right, guys. So for the first question, it's going to be youth soccer before select. All right, so like U7 to U10, just before select. So for the first question, I'll start off. How influential were your parents in shaping your experience about the game? So for me, it was, well, at least on my dad's side, very influential. And I don't know how much of a choice I had at the time. But I ended up loving the game a lot. It was never something that I felt it was pushed on me. At least luckily for me. And as far, obviously, as my dad being the coach, I really didn't, I never had an option to leave. At least I don't think I did. But
unless it was Barcelona.
Yeah, unless it was out of the country. That was probably the only way it would have been. But I would say really as far as being influential, I really wouldn't say as far as my love for the game, they really didn't have much to do with it, because as long as I remember, I always loved the game from as early as I can remember. Jeremy?
Yeah, I think my parents were very, very supportive. I had an older brother who is 4 years older than me, so whenever he got into soccer, I got into soccer. So it was support from my parents, it was support from my brother. They had no experience playing soccer. My parents came from Vietnam after the war. They didn't play growing up, not like Kevin's or Daniel's parents. They didn't do anything of such in terms of coaching or anything. So ACES was probably my first introduction to organized soccer. I did play for the city, YMCA or rec leagues. But in terms of ACES was the first organized club that I ever experienced. It was the grassroots for me.
Well, as far as my parents, my dad coached, and he also played on a team here. He coached my brother, and but as far as coaching me, he really didn't have any influence in that, because I started with ACES at a young age. I think 6, 7, I would say, and my mom was the one taking me to those practices. Her support is what really helped me as far as my progression, because she made sure that I was always there on time and taking me to all the games. Sometimes my dad couldn't make it because he had to work on the weekends, and my mom would be the one taking me to all the games. But my dad did definitely push me to work hard, and that's where it really helped me out as far as just wanting to get better, because basically my dad, he just said, hey, you either try your best or you're out, and so I had to try hard.
Oh yeah, for me, my parents, neither of them knew anything about soccer. My mom still doesn't.
I mean, how did about
Um,
actually, and I should probably ask you two about this.
Yeah.
But are you saying your dad just like picked a random sport
No.
and just put you into soccer? Like, how did that?
No, no,
even-
no. That's not. Yeah, that's definitely not how I came to love soccer so much. But in terms of like the question though, my parents. So going back to that, they didn't know anything about soccer, but they're always very supportive. My dad, I was always an athlete from a very young age. I was running around climbing up houses when I was 3 years old. So, I was always an athlete. I played every sport growing up, and then it just came down to it where I had to make a decision what sport I wanted to play. And I chose soccer. It was for me. It was the best experience out of any of the sports I played. You have the most team camaraderie. It was just something I enjoyed playing. There's not really many stoppages at all. You're always involved in the play, so it's something I just
And
love.
was that like 100% your decision, or did your parents kind of push you towards soccer?
That was my decision what sport I wanted to play.
Okay.
But my parents, in terms of like how they influenced me, they were supportive of me playing sports, and they would take me all over the place. They would drive me 2 hours just to go play if I wanted to. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And for the next question, it's similar to the first question, and it's basically how influential were your parents in determining what team you played for? Again, this would be the ages before select soccer, so before U11. So for me, it didn't cross my mind switching teams at all. Yeah, the only option that I did have was to really quit or not quit. I did have a brother who played soccer, but he ended up quitting early. But as far as teams, I never even crossed my mind. And Jeremy?
Like I said, ACES is probably the first organized sport, and we probably talked to this ad nauseum that when we started soccer at the age of 7, 8, there wasn't many options. It was, I was lucky to find ACES, to be honest. I mean, at that point, you played for your city team, and then you hope that city team would then kind of keep on going. But Sam recruited me at Soccer Spectrum, and then I didn't know there was such thing as organized soccer here, at least in Texas. Like, what was that path to get a college scholarship? What was that path to go pro? That, I don't think anybody knew what to do. So I think ACES being homegrown, being close to home, it was an easy decision. Not saying because there was nothing else, but it was because they thought about that before a lot of other places did. I had a brother, like I said, that I played older with, and he was exposed to kind of the bigger clubs, but the bigger clubs kind of started at the age of 11 when Select started. So I didn't know of what the academy was or what was pre-Select. ACES was probably the first pre-Select organized thing that was going to go into Select. If that makes sense. It was, there was a Texan, I'm sure there was a mini club that came before, or a mini team that came before that, but I wasn't part of that. There was probably a pre-Solar or a pre-Comets or a pre-Inter, but ACES was the first one that I came around, so it was an easy decision for me.
Daniel?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier, I got recruited with ACES at 6, 7 years old, so I didn't really think about choosing another team, or I wasn't even recruited or even thought about it, just for the sense that I was enjoying myself with the team that I was with, and I didn't really get asked if I wanted to play with another team, really. I just went to practice twice a week with the same team, and the other days I just played on my own, and I just kept going and going until they said, hey, it's Select now. And I'm like, what's Select? All right, let's go, let's play. And I just went ahead with it, and that's where I stuck with, and I kept going with that.
And Daniel, did your parents ever like do research on other teams, or was it just you just go out there and have fun, and if you like it, you stay? If you don't, let us know.
Yeah, it was more about just my enjoyment. Like, was I enjoying it, or did I want to try something else at that age? And as I went on later, yeah, there was an instant, but we'll talk about that as we go. But
Okay.
yeah, it was really more of if I was having fun with the team, and I enjoyed it, so I didn't even have that thought process of, oh, I need to switch teams. I'm not liking it.
Okay.
I just stuck with what I like.
Zach? And I'll just read the question again just
no,
in case. You got it?
You can get it.
So how influential were your parents in determining what team you played for?
Yeah, so I actually, we found AYSES in an interesting fashion. My dad is actually the reason I joined AYSES, interestingly enough. I had always played rec, you know, younger, I'm sure everyone else did, but we didn't even know what like soccer was, organized sports. It was just recreation sports, you know. Just go out with your local team, you know, have fun. But we could tell that like I was more than a rec player. My dad could tell. So when my team broke up, because I guess it was like we were getting too old, select was about to come. I had to find a team. So we were at Soccer Spectrum, and my dad actually went and up to the owner and asked him who he recommended. You know, we were looking for a team. He told him my age. You guys happen to be playing a
I didn't know
game
that.
right behind him.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
you got
Okay.
AYSES was playing a game right behind him, and the guy turns and he's like, "Interesting. This guy just started a club. He's looking for players." And my dad, we waited for your game to end. My dad went up and talked to him, and ever since then, that's when I joined AYSES. And he also forced me to go to the first practice. Like we showed up, and I was really shy as a kid. Not
Right.
Once I get to know people, I was a little crazy, but I was always shy at first. And we got there, and I started walking out, and I was like, "No, I'm not going. I don't want to go." And my dad's like, "We already drove out here. You're going out there." So he dragged me out to the practice, and ever since I stayed there for 10 plus years. I enjoyed every minute of it. So
I can hear your dad
Yeah.
talking right now.
Yeah.
All right. So for the next question, and again, this is before select soccer. How did you view the level of our team compared to other teams? So before select soccer, now that I think about it, I don't even know how much I really thought about that, to be honest.
No.
Not too young at the time, and like you said, Jeremy, soccer wasn't a big thing. It was still like early coming up, so it wasn't like as big as it is now. But man, to be honest, for me, I didn't even really think about that in pre-select.
I don't think that has probably changed today. I mean, coming back now, I'm coaching 7, 8-year-olds, and I mean, this could be just a AYSES philosophy, but you see it in the kids' eyes. They're out there to play, and you, as a coach, you want them to play. You're not. I don't even care if they win or lose, you know. So, I don't think we as players were cognizant enough to really understand that a team was better than us, or you were not as good as someone else, or you were better than someone else. I think, you know, probably kids are. It was you win or lose. That team was better on a certain day. Like I don't
Exactly.
think competitiveness at that age is not. I think it's very.
Just game by game.
It's just it's just in the moment there is competitiveness, but it's not emotionally draining that they go back home and like, okay, like we were not as good today, or they were better than us, or I'm better than them. So, and I think, like I said, I think that's just an AYSES philosophy that's my perspective looking at the game now. But in the long term, I think that's the most important, is to enjoy the game as much as you can. You know, this is realistically just a sport. This is just a hobby. You know, if you're lucky enough, you know, if you're fortunate enough and blessed enough, there's a ticket to go to college, there's a ticket to go play pro. But it's a portion of your life. It's not your life that you know, at the age of 8, at the age of 9, at the age of 10. And I think that's good. You know, and we'll talk about this more, that I went to a mega club, and, you know, I was burnt out at the age of 17, you know, so it's good and bad things.
Daniel?
Yeah, so I didn't really pay attention much to the level of other teams or our team either, because we either won or we lost, and at the end of the day, I went home happy.
I know, yeah.
You know, I just went back to my family and just hung out with friends and stuff, and I forgot about the game, you know, and because our coaches didn't get mad at us if we lost or anything. They just told us what we needed to hear, just a good game, y'all tried, and if we didn't try, we'd hear it from him, but most of the part, if you're trying, I mean, what more can you ask for? And as long as you're enjoying it, and that's why I didn't really take importance to that. Yeah, later on we got older, yeah, but at that age it was more about having fun and enjoying it and being with your friends and just juking someone, breaking their ankles,
Yeah.
trying to at least, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach?
I mean, I'm definitely in the same boat as all these guys. We all grew up playing for the same club when we were younger, so we all got that same philosophy instilled in us. And it's really, it's in the name. I mean, you look at AYSES, it stands for Advanced Youth Soccer Educational System. You're there to learn the game when you're that young. You're not there to go and win. It's not till the later stages of our careers in select that we started like, oh, winning becomes important now. Like 16, 17, that's when and we actually started winning then too. That's, the most important part when you're younger was to just enjoy the game, have fun, and your dad made that fun for us. Sammy was a great coach. He helped us learn that because you want the kids to enjoy the sport. It really goes for any sport. You want them to enjoy it first before they learn to win.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, definitely.
if they don't enjoy it, they're not going to want to play anymore.
And the next question is similar. It's how much did the level of the players you were playing with affect your experience at that time? And for me at that time, I was really so young, and I guess part of the emphasis of our team that really wasn't emphasized at all. So for me, it's pretty much the same answer. I really didn't think about the level of other players. I was just focused on, did I have fun today or not? That's it.
Yeah, I would say joining AYSES, the city team that I was playing on before, was not as good as AYSES. So it was a level up.
Okay.
It was a level in terms of, and you probably could think of that if it's something that's organized sports more than recreational sports. You would think the level of play is higher, and it was. It's probably why I joined AYSES, is because of the step up from where I was before, the team that I was playing on, in terms of playing different teams, being exposed to different styles of play, just having more players around that can play soccer, and having a true coach, a coach that played before, a coach with history, So you can probably, it's argument to say that Sammy was my first real coach, so to speak. I mean, it was a dad coach playing, when you play for your rec team. It wasn't, probably the person who raised his hand that said, okay, I'll be the coach for the season, who probably read, Soccer 101 for Dummies. But, it's not, I wouldn't call it a coach. It's the person who wants to organize it for the city. Sammy was my first coach. That had the cones, had the bibs, had the flags, wanted to rent out a park or the backyard of a city school to practice. So in that case, I'm like, oh, I guess this is how we have to do it now, and it's great.
And about that, how would you say it affected your experience or how you felt about the game when you moved to a team with certain players? Like, did it change anything as far as your experience?
I mean, I think we're too little not to really. I think reflectively, it's like they were going somewhere. AYSES was going someplace. If you had the effort in to have something that's organized, you're going someplace. My rec team, we weren't going anywhere. It was you played for your city, you played on Saturdays and Sundays, but it wasn't.
So that was very clear.
Right. It was very clear that it was like, okay, this is a step up, and the step up to the direction that I wanted to go to, because I knew soccer. I'm pretty sure I played other sports like baseball. But I made a decision fairly early. My parents knew really early that soccer was going to be the sport, even though I played baseball and other sports. But it was soccer.
Okay. And Daniel?
Well, as far as other players affecting my experience level-wise and all that, I didn't really judge anyone, It was more of just like trying your best and seeing each other the other ones as your friends, and because our style of play was more of like just play where you're looking at, and that was one of the things that we did. Like if there's a player behind me pressuring me, I would pass it back. Like I wouldn't think, oh, my player is not good enough to control it. No, like I'm gonna give it to him because that's the way you play the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't think about, hey, this player gonna miss the ball or miscontrol it. No, I'm just gonna give him that chance, and if he does mess up at all, well, I'll run back and help him.
Yeah.
That's all it was. I mean, I remember just running back and forth, and it was never, oh no, like I don't want to do this. No, it's a teamwork. If you don't work together, it's not going to work, and you have to think that working together is the best way to do it, and that's the way I thought the entire time. You know,
Zach?
Yeah, I mean, to add on to what Daniel was saying there, I mean, in terms of like the level of other players, it influenced me a lot. You guys brought my level up, because when I joined AYSES, I went from being the best on my rec team to being a bench player on AYSES, and I was like, oh, how am I going to see the field? You know, am I going to play? You know, I'm not gonna lie, it was frustrating at first, obviously, not playing, but I enjoyed being at practice. These guys pushed me. Like Daniel said, we had that philosophy to play where you're facing, and we all trusted each other still. We weren't like, oh, this guy's worse than me, I'm not gonna give him the ball. So that helped me gain a lot of confidence in itself, because no matter what, you were gonna get the ball. You know, you knew you were on that field and you were gonna get the ball, and each one of your players has confidence in you, and you all work for each other. So, so in terms of like other players influencing me, it helped me tremendously and gain confidence and become a better player. So,
and just to expand on what Daniel Flores had said, because I've heard it with some teams in select soccer where they don't pass it to certain players if they based on skill level. And honestly, I don't know, even taking youth soccer before select, I don't know if the whole of AYSES I ever thought I'm not passing him the ball because he's going to lose it. I don't think that one time that ever crossed my mind. It's just play the right way, like you said before.
And if you lose it,
then
you gotta be the first one to win it back. Yeah,
exactly.
Your dad instilled that. Like, he said, if you lose the ball, you run back, and I had that mentality. You lose it, or even if my player next to me loses, I'm gonna go help him. If he fell, or if he's just, I guess, a little bit slower than you, I would still go help. You know, it's not not just standing there. Like, you have to help each other out.
And that's important to learn that at a young age too.
For sure.
Because some people don't learn it till they're later on, because they've always been the best player that always gets the ball.
Right.
And then it becomes tough for them because other people catch up, and they don't know how to be a team player.
Definitely. And then for the next question, what are the biggest factors that determine whether you would stay or leave AYSES going into select soccer? And for me, again, I really, leaving AYSES never crossed my mind. So I really don't have much say on this question. But all I can say is, like, it never crossed my mind. Part of the reason, I mean, I love the game. The only option I had was quitting, but even that never crossed my mind at that time, to be honest. Jeremy?
Well, I did leave.
But what would you say, though, were the biggest factors?
I think how the club was ran. Now, obviously, looking back, and obviously now that I'm 30 years old and I'm coming back to coach, I chose AYSES, not the other club. So that has to mean something. Here is, I understand the philosophy. I am mature enough to reflect to say that it is a long road, but winning is not the most important thing in the long road. You know, you sign up for this sport at the age of 5, 6, or 7, and it's a 10-year commitment if you want to go all the way. And it's a lot of soccer you're going to have to play. It's a lot of games you're going to have to play, a lot of practices you have to do. And winning at the age of 11 doesn't guarantee you anything at the age of 15, at the age of 18. And if you instill that at the beginning, you know, you're going to get burned out. And what AYSES in the philosophy is that, you know, you don't, it's a long road. You don't win this sport until it's quote unquote important, if you want to say, but you know, you should also still have fun. It's not part of, and I think that's the most important philosophy, is that this is just a sport, this is not a job. And you know, even for people who didn't play as much, you stay because of the friends and the family and the parents that you're with. This is more than just a sport. This is a family that we come back to. We're sitting here 20 years from that day. You know, I don't think many people can say that you did something 20 years ago and you're going to go full circle and connect the dot and go back and help the club that basically made you who you are today, in terms of, you know, me as a person, you know, in terms of my discipline, in terms of understanding adversity, in terms of, following instructions. You learn a lot of life skills through the sport of soccer, and I think a lot of that has to be because of ACES as well.
Yeah. And one thing I want to ask you, Jeremy, is because you have I want to expand on this question with you because you have a perspective that we don't have.
Right.
So whenever you made the decision to go to Texans, what factors were you looking at? Like, what was it about them that we were lacking at that time?
Well, it's probably consistent, and I've said this, that I played for my city rec team, and it was a level up to go to ACES, which was the first organized soccer thing that I've ever experienced until right before we went select, I found another thing. I knew of the Dallas Texans, I knew of the Solars because my brother was 4 years ahead of me, so he was already in that type of select sport already. It was hard to say no when they reached out to me. It was hard to say no when you go out there and there are other people, there are other players of your age that are like, we're really going to sign up for this. In terms of commitment-wise, it was hard to say no. There was, I think we said before, we had a core of 5-6 people that was, they were going to be a part of this team for a long time. And then I wouldn't call them the externals, but they were kind of people who came in and kind of gelled in. Mm. At Texas at the point in time, they were 11. There was 11, there was 12 kids, and all the parents backed them. All the maybe kids had same experience as me that had people that are kids or siblings that were older than them that were already part of the club. Mm. So there was a little bit of legacy in part of that you would probably look at something that has a lot more history and a lot more success and say that's a good decision. Mm. Coming back now, ACES has a lot of success. Great, different fashions, but we do have success. And I think now, looking back into the sport and coaching now, it's almost hard to determine what's a good club and what's a bad club, because everybody's kind of now doing this because soccer is so well played around the North Texas region. And I think the philosophy of ACES is very unique, but you have to come experience it to really understand it. It's not something you'll see from how we coach out of one game, because we could have lost that game or we could have won that game. It's more something when you start to feel how close-knit of a family that we are, that really brings people together. It makes you want to stay, rather than if you go to a mega club, it's you sign up for a job, you sign up for, it's true, it is a ticket to go to college. Though the scouts in the big universities do scout those teams more. Because again, the brand is they're older than us, they've had that legacy, they've had that history, they have those accolades. So of course, it's a brand now. It's more branding ACES to that's not just about winning and losing, which is probably hard in a kind of Western mentality that we have here in the United States, that winning is everything. It's a very capitalistic mentality that you have to win to be successful. And it's obviously not always the case. When you have something that you sign up for 10 years, when you're 6, 7, and 8 years old, you don't win at the age of 10, you don't win at the age of 11. You win at the age of 18. And it's as a parent, I'm not a parent yet, but I think it's hard as a parent to say, okay, what's guaranteed? Because when you go to Texans, when you go to Solar, when you go to the big clubs, you are kind of guaranteed. Yeah. A little bit, you are. Unfortunately, you are. It's not saying you will play in college, but you probably get looked at a university, and it's hard to kind of compare that. But as we all said, we all played college soccer. Yeah. So there's more tickets to college now. There's more tickets to the next level. So.
Yeah, and Jeremy, and I know Daniel and Zach, you guys are here, but Jeremy, on just one more thing on that is because part of the reason that you had gone there is because, like you said, they had a legacy, they had a history,
right.
And at ACES at the time, we were like the oldest team,
right.
So
first
there was
team.
nothing you could say, okay, they have a track record of doing this.
Exactly.
So that's another thing. It's always like I said before, hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
But at the time, given your situation where you were coming from, and you said too that your parents didn't have like a background of any soccer, so all you had to do was, okay, logically, the decision is go to a team that has credibility. They have a
Right.
history of doing things. And ACES, we didn't have that.
Right.
So we were the oldest
You know.
team.
And then there was alumni, as we're sitting today, they probably, I'm not sure they did a podcast, but there's Clint Dempsey, there's Lee Wynn,
Mm-hmm.
there's Omar Gonzalez, like you saw players kind of in the rise,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw players come back as we're doing today, speak as alumni. It's like, okay, so if you stay at this thing, you could be that guy,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure as parents, it's like, of course.
Yeah.
So as we're doing today here as alumni coming back, we it's flipped the switch now.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we as alumni say, okay, you don't have to go to a mega club. You can still make it here. It's really now as a parent and as a child to really make that decision of what is making it. How do you define that? How do you define success? Is it a ticket to college? Is it a ticket to pro? Or is it just enjoying the game enough that you learn and you build a family and you have friends that you can sit back 20 years from now and say, we're still buds.
Good point.
What is most
Good point.
important? What is
Good
most
point.
important now?
Yeah. Good point. And Daniel, you on this question? Should I read it again?
Go ahead and reread it for me.
Yeah, I know that's a long one.
What's going on?
What were the biggest factors that determined whether you would stay or leave ACES going into select soccer? And if you did have any thoughts of leaving, what were those thoughts? Or if you never thought about it, why not?
Well, it goes back to the enjoyment of the game. It's are you having fun? Are the players around you nice to you, first off? I mean, do they care about you? Do you work together as a whole unit? And do you trust your coach? That's the most important part right there. Is
And how could you tell that? At that age? Or like what made you get that feeling?
I don't want to say as far as like whether Sammy saw something more in me at the time, but he did push me harder than a lot of the kids. Like he would, as far as like yelling, not yelling, but just harder on me. If I made a mistake, Daniel.
It wasn't like if Christopher Bosma made a mistake.
If somebody else made a mistake, it wouldn't be the same reaction. So for me, I was like, whoa. Okay,
He saw our potential.
Yeah, so he
saw
saw
our
me and
potential a lot.
he was. I was like, why is this guy always yelling at me? Oh, my coach, sorry, but and I asked him that one day, and I was like, why are you always hard on me, no one else? And he was like, it's because I see your potential. I know you can do better. And at that point, I was like, you know what, this guy, he might be right, So let him push me, and it pushed me to not want to make mistakes in a way where like I want to be better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he took me to FC Dallas. At the time, it was Burns.
Ooh,
Oh yeah,
Dallas
Burns.
Burns. Yeah,
Hugo Sanchez played there.
yeah. I don't know if you remember, but your
What?
dad would take me and you.
I don't remember you. I remember going to the games, but I don't remember if you were with us or not.
Okay, well, yeah, your dad picked me up a couple times to go to the games. So by him doing that, I mean, for me, it was like, wow, he cares about me and wants to take me to a game and watch professional soccer players, and he took an interest in me, and so I took him like a father figure, and that was a big influence as far as not even thinking about going to another team, just trusting in him and knowing that he'll make me a better player.
Yeah, he was definitely a dad more than a coach.
Yeah, so
He was definitely part of the family.
And Daniel, this is another thing. Just before we go to Zach, that you had mentioned before, is that actually Jeremy mentioned it too. Is that it wasn't just about soccer? It was like your character, how you behaved.
Yeah.
That was very important.
Absolutely.
Just almost as important as actually probably just as important as soccer itself.
Yeah, and he put that mentality in us that like.
And it didn't matter how good you were.
Yeah.
It didn't
No,
matter.
yeah.
No, and he would
we obviously didn't notice it.
Yeah, he would get on you if there was something that if you're messing around or something, like it wasn't okay, and you were there to get better and you were there to try. Yes, you enjoyed it, but it was more to challenge yourself to get better every day. And I didn't when I went to practice, I knew I had to work hard. It wasn't just, oh, I'm just gonna come here and go 50%. No, and there was even days where like, oh man, I don't want to go because I know I have to try so hard, or else he'll notice it.
Yeah.
Because he knows when you try hard and when you don't. So he would push you to that level, and I respected that because at the end of the day, yeah, there are days where you're gonna need help. And there's days when you don't want to get out of the bed and just press the snooze button. But he was that type of guy that wouldn't let you press that snooze button.
No.
He said you got to give it that 100%, and by him instilling that with me, I was just like, all right, I got to keep going. I got to keep trying, and I just didn't even think about leaving the club at all with that mentality. I was like, you know what, I got to stick it in. Yes, there was one instance, for one season where I was like, you know what, I'm kind of getting burned out. I was 13, 14, but that was just one little stepping stone just because of the seriousness of being part of the club, where if you leave, I was kind of like not burnt out, but just like you said, like the seriousness where I couldn't go stay at my friend's house. I slept home. I went to sleep early.
Fear of commitment.
My commitment level.
Yeah.
Like I had to
It's a
drink
change
my
of life.
water. I had to eat well.
It's a change of lifestyle.
I had to. I couldn't even go hang out with my cousins. Sleep early. Everything, and as a kid, you're just like, give me a break,
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you're testing yourself for the real world. Like, if you can do this, what the real world, it'll be a little bit easier just for the fact that you sacrificed. So you can sacrifice. You learn to sacrifice. Like, okay, I have to give up something to gain something else on the other hand.
Oh yeah, that's a life skill.
Yeah,
That's
so
a
if you can learn
huge
that
life
as a
skill.
kid, man.
Take it with you wherever you go.
Take it where you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
a huge one.
So
And-
that-
Yeah. And Zach?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I never even thought about leaving AYSES, which might seem as a shock, just based on the fact that when I first joined, I had mentioned earlier that I didn't, I was at the bottom of the totem pole when I first joined because my skill level wasn't there with the guys that had been there for a while.
Actually, your skill level was pretty good.
It
It was really just your size.
My size.
Because if
It
you
was
were,
just your size.
that's really what it was.
Yeah, I was a runt. Yeah, so I was a small guy.
Now he's the tallest.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people in my position might have left. But for me, it was just the family atmosphere. I loved being there. I mentioned earlier too that first day I didn't want to go, but then after I made it through that first day, I didn't want to leave. So it was it went from the opposite side of the spectrum to me. So it was great for me to experience that. To just be at a point where like my development took me to a point where I became a regular starter, and me sticking it out just helped me become a better player. And I never wanted to leave the club. These guys here always supported me. Coach Sammy supported me. He always pushed me to be my best. And he always told me, actually, when I first joined, he said, "You're going to be something special." He always told me, he's like, "You might not be playing, but you're going to be a good player. Just watch." And it ended up working out. So, I trusted what he said. I trusted playing with you guys, and it was great.
Your dad had a way to empower us as an 8-year-old when we haven't achieved much in our lifetime as a 7, 8-year-old. But there was some sort of like, through soccer you can be something.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, again, in terms of being as American, as a Western side, in terms of soccer not being popular, to say the most non-popular sport here in the U.S., to say you're going to be something in a sport like that,
Yeah.
it's a large gamble, but he saw that.
And,
Yeah,
just to add, and none of us might have gone pro like we wanted to or anything, but we all went to college because of soccer.
yes,
Yeah.
We all had this philosophy in our minds because of soccer and what your dad taught us.
Yes. So I never even thought about college, and because of AYSES, I went to college. So like that's a great gift, knowing that when I was little, growing up, even when I was 16, even to the age of my senior year, I was like, it's not going to college. Why am I gonna go to college? You know, and then I got the opportunity to go, and hey, look, I graduated. You know, even got my master's.
I know, right?
You know, like, and looking back, I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have done any of this if it wasn't for AYSES, for soccer, for giving this opportunity that one man believed in me and treated me like one of his kids.
Right.
You know, so, and I looked at Sammy as a father, you know, because we respected him, trusted in him, and tried hard for him, you know.
Yeah. And just real quick to go on the thing that Jeremy had said, as far as feeling empowered, I'm gonna let you guys know, and you guys probably know, but that didn't happen for me. Because Daniel was like, "Oh, he treated me like we were his kid." I was like, I think like for the whole select soccer, I don't really know if I got like a compliment or like doing a good game or anything like the whole time.
Well, I didn't either.
But, yeah.
But it was more like you knew that he was trying to push you to become better, so he didn't have to give you that compliment.
Right.
By him pushing you was his compliment, saying, "I'm going to give you my energy and give it to you." So
It's
you
a different
have
And that's a good point, because a lot of, from what I hear, a lot of parents and players think that, oh, why are you? Because that's a regular theme. A lot of parents think, oh, you're picking on me. Why do you always pick on my son? Like, why are you hard on him?
Right.
And some people take it differently.
Yeah.
So it's
all about perspective.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think you just have to have that conversation with the coach. Ask him why. You know, like,
Yeah.
why are you always hard on my son?
You can't assume.
Yeah.
You can't assume.
You know, and I asked him that question. You know, why are you hard on me?
Yeah. And Zach, one thing before this first part is done is about you wanting to stay on this team, because a lot of, and I'm sure if we had 2 or 3 teams on the time, you would not have been on the first team for sure.
Yeah.
You would have been at most at the second team.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't play. I mean, I remember some games you're like, okay, we're not bringing you on unless we're winning like 5-0.
Yeah.
Like, so that again like brings me my question, because a lot of parents have that where they go down to the second team, but they don't realize they can come back to the first team and be one of the best players, if not the best player. So again, I just want to bring, like, how did your father take that? How did you take that at the time? And I know you said that you hadn't thought about leaving the team, but what about your dad, from what you remember?
So my dad, interestingly enough, you know, you would think a lot of parents would get like upset that their kid wasn't playing. My dad was never like that. He was always the one, when I actually got on the field, he would always yell at me, motivating me. I'm sure you guys remember me yelling back at him a lot of times. So my dad pushed me, you know, so like if he didn't believe, he's not a big change guy either, so my dad doesn't like change. So I mean, I was on this team, I liked it, so he liked it too. He saw I wasn't playing, he didn't look at it as the coach's fault or the other player's fault. He looked at it as not necessarily my fault, but that like I need to do what the coach says to get better. And and your dad, like I said, kept telling him it has nothing to do with like his play, like, you know, who he is. He's gonna be he's gonna learn. He's gonna do it. He's gonna become a good player. He's like, I see it in him. He kept telling us that. So he kept telling us that, and it pushed me to want to stay on the team. And that's one of the reasons it just never crossed my mind, because he kept telling me that over and over, that it was going to happen.
Okay.
And that motivated you?
Yeah. Just
See,
so
that's a totally different mentality that we had.
And by the way,
yeah, because you guys were all. I mean, I remember coming to your team. You guys were the all-stars. I mean, this guy would shoot from half field and score. This guy would dribble 10 players.
That's hard as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
That's hard as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, 10 to what, 14, 15 when when you started playing. That's hard on your brain. Yeah. You know, but that goes.
Oh, you talking about from Zach's perspective?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because that comes from both good parenting and good coaching.
Oh, for sure. Definitely parenting has a big factor to play.
Right. And that's a parenting thing, because if you had left, I don't think anybody could have said anything. You know, like I think anybody would have to agree in terms of, I need to get more playing time to that ticket to college.
It would have been reasonable.
We would understand why.
We would have understood that. You know, but to grind that out,
I know.
You know,
in
arguably probably one of the hardest times of our pre-adult life.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of how much money that was for your parents.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. It wasn't
You know,
free.
as a parent
Yeah.
now, if I'm gonna pay that much, or how I
That's
mean,
a
you were
very
cheaper
good
than other
point.
clubs, but if you're gonna pay money, put something down, and your child's
That's
not
a
playing,
very good point.
that's not a good investment. I
That's a
mean,
good
it's just
point.
not. I mean,
That's a
it
good
isn't.
point.
Yeah.
We look at it now as adults. If I'm gonna
It's
put
easy to
money
say
down,
now though.
well, I mean,
At the
it's-
time,
Yeah.
It's
I
like
mean,
the
I'm
Tesla
sure.
stock, man.
Yeah,
You didn't
I'm
know it was a
sure.
good idea until time.
Yeah, that's true.
Time.
Tesla, Apple, they're all. But
Right.
Things like
just-
that, man.
So I mean, it's arguably also your dad seeing something.
Oh,
in
for
Ace,
sure.
Seeing something in
for
Sammy,
sure.
and not only you, because it's his money at that point.
Yeah,
It's your parents' money.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, so that's amazing.
It
you
is.
know?
It is.
I'm sure, yeah,
It
because I'm
is.
sure as a kid, if like I can't really remember, to be honest, what I was exactly thinking at the time. You know, all I know is I know that I wanted to be with AYSES. I can't
Right.
really remember my emotions and everything.
But the devil's
but-
advocate was, what other choice did you have? I mean,
Yeah.
it goes back to how much soccer was actually played
Yeah.
in what 98, 99
Yeah.
here. You know, we had our first World Cup in '94.
Yeah.
Women's World Cup was coming up in 2002 or 2001. You know, like how much of soccer was actually prevalent? You know, like where you know you couldn't go on Facebook. You couldn't go find teams to play at. It was you did kind of ingrain yourself in the city team that kind of went to a select team, and then
Yeah.
that's what
Now,
it was.
now to be fair to Zach too, and I know this is going past it, but Zach was on the bench for a long time. Like this was not. It's not like select. Okay, Zach started playing.
Okay, rub it in. So
No. The reason I say that is because that patience, and then I remember even at U18, we were playing a game, and Travis was like, if you want to talk about doing a 180, he's like, at this point, we might as well give every ball to Zach. Because that's how good you were playing, and that was many years later.
Right.
So it went from one point to completely the other side.
Yeah.
So that's why I bring that up.
But I think it also comes to like, we never really picked on each other.
No.
We were never that type of team where like
That's another
we're
point.
dashed on anybody.
That's
Like,
another point.
we,
Yeah.
we weren't like that. We weren't
We
hard.
joked, but it was
we
camaraderie.
joked, we joked around and
Everyone
like we
jokes.
played around with
Yeah.
each other, but it was never like, even if you weren't close to someone, like not every single person is going to be really close to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
But we never, as far as my experience,
Not once.
we
Not
never
me either.
disrespected in each other. Yeah, we got into little tussles, but over the game.
Not about someone's ability.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
it was like playing hard and like going at
Exactly,
each
You
other.
yeah.
always had a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you always contributed in some way
Yeah.
for some way or fashion.
Yeah.
That was your contribution,
We
and that
never-
was perfectly
As
acceptable.
far as my perspective, like someone never made fun of me. I never made fun of anybody. I didn't hear anybody else make fun of anybody else.
No.
Mm.
We're all
Or
And
beating
if you
each other
did-
down.
And if you did, it did happen on the rare occasion. Sammy would
Yeah.
bench you.
oh
He
yeah.
Yeah.
would bench you, and you wouldn't
Yeah.
play.
Mhm.
So I
It was
mean,
discipline at the
yeah.
same time,
Yeah.
you know. And like, yes, there was like little groups that got along with each other more,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like someone was isolated
never.
or in a way. No, it was.
Yeah.
We still all talk to each other at the same thing.
Right.
Mm.
Whether you're best friends with one person and not with the other, maybe, but not to where like you disrespected that other player
Never.
in any sense.
That's
or-
probably the one thing of ACES that I will probably never forget
Mm.
is, you know, we were a tight knit group, you know, and that means a lot. Versus, you had your cliques in other groups, either
Yeah.
where you lived or kind of what high school you went to. You had that, but there was also the isolation of if you weren't that good on the team, you were kind of
Yeah, we were never
yeah,
like that.
you kind of
man.
pushed them
Mhm.
out, you know, politically, but like yeah, it
Yeah, I
was
know
your
what you
time to
mean.
leave,
I sat next to anybody.
right?
Yeah.
You know.
So that made us on the field better because you probably were best friends with the worst person on the team.
Mhm.
You know, that was your best friend.
Oh yeah, and,
Yeah.
I'll say this right
Yeah,
now
me
that
and
you
Kevin
said that
were
I went to Zach's place all the time and he came to my place all the time.
Right.
So it's like me and Daniel, we're on the top. Zach is like all the way on the bottom, but
We're
we
still
went to
a
each
good
other's
friend.
house so often.
Exactly.
Look, I would
So-
always go out with this guy.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
It was
yeah.
never.
So it wasn't the top players kind of click with each other and the bottom
No,
players.
it
it
was
wasn't
never
that
like
at
that.
all.
I
No.
probably never went to anyone's house more often than Zach. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know about vice versa,
I
but it was
was
crazy.
Andrews the most.
Yeah. But Andrew wasn't that good at that time.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't really care, man.
Nah, we didn't.
We were out
We
there
didn't.
just to have
We didn't
fun,
care. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's it for the first part, and stay tuned for part 2.
All right,
Thank you guys.